The kitchen smelled like sage and butter, the kind of smell that tricks you into thinking everything is fine just because it's familiar. My aunt stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, moving with the authority of someone who had hosted this meal for decades and intended to keep doing so. The rest of us hovered or passed through, opening drawers we already knew the contents of, pretending to help. It was one of those pauses between tasks, nothing urgent, nothing emotional, when I said it. "Hey, Aunt Linda," I said, lightly, almost absently. "I don't think I ever properly thanked you for that bike you got me when I was 12. I rode that thing everywhere. It felt safe, harmless, a small offering of gratitude that asked for nothing in return." She stopped stirring, not gradually, not distractedly. She froze, spoon mid-air, her back still to me. "I gave you a Mercedes-Benz, though?" she said. The sentence wasn't a joke. There was no laugh attached to it, no exaggerated tone. It landed flat and certain, like a correction offered to someone who had misread a label. Behind me, my sister choked on her coffee. It was loud enough to break the silence, which I was suddenly very aware of. Someone laughed reflexively, my cousin maybe, then stopped when no one else joined in. I felt heat rush to my face, followed by a hollowing sensation in my chest. Not embarrassment exactly. Disorientation. "A Mercedes?" I repeated. Linda turned around then, spoon still in her hand, eyebrows raised in mild disbelief. "Yes, when you graduated high school. Silver. Used, but still. I remember because your mother thought it was excessive." She said it the way people say things they've said many times before, as if this version of the story had already been rehearsed and accepted somewhere I hadn't been invited. I opened my mouth, then closed it. My memory was clear, painfully clear. The bike had been red, slightly too big for me, bought second-hand from someone down the street. I remembered the wobble of the first ride, the scraped knee, the way I chained it up like it was something precious. There had been no car, not from her, not from anyone. My sister stared at me, eyes wide, waiting. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Oh," I said finally, "I must be remembering it wrong." Linda smiled, relieved. She turned back to the stove and resumed stirring, the moment already filed away as resolved. Conversation restarted in fragments. Someone asked about parking, someone else mentioned football. The noise returned, but something in me didn't. I spent the rest of the afternoon slightly detached, watching the way stories moved around the table, how people nodded along, how certain facts grew larger each time they were repeated. Linda told a version of my graduation story that included the car again, casually, as if reinforcing it for anyone who had missed it the first time. No one corrected her. On the drive home, my sister finally spoke. "Did that really just happen?" she asked. "I think so," I said. "You never had a Mercedes." "I know." She shook her head. "She does that, you know that, right?" I did, in a general way. Linda had always been generous in stories, if not always in practice. She liked to be remembered as someone who gave big, who showed up loudly. I'd never realized how far she was willing to go. That night, after the house was quiet, I pulled out an old folder from the back of a drawer, not because I needed proof for anyone else, but because I needed it for myself. Inside were things I hadn't looked at in years: school paperwork, old insurance forms, a receipt from the bike shop with Linda's name scribbled next to partial payment. There it was, small, unimpressive, real. The next morning I called my mother. "She said she bought me a Mercedes," I said. There was a pause on the line, then a sigh. "She says that now," my mother replied. "I don't correct her anymore. It turns into something else if I do." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" "I didn't think it mattered," she said. "I didn't think she'd say it to you." That sat with me for days. Not the lie itself, but how easily it had been delivered, how ready everyone was to let it stand. At the next family gathering, Linda hugged me like nothing had happened. She asked about my job, my apartment, my plans. At one point, she started telling a story about how she'd always tried to set me up for success. I listened. I nodded. I didn't interrupt. Something had shifted, though, not dramatically, quietly. I stopped offering my own memories for correction, stopped volunteering details that could be repurposed. When Linda spoke of her generosity, I let it exist without attaching myself to it. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even resolution. It was distance, measured and intentional. I still remember the bike, the chipped paint, the sound it made when I rode too fast downhill. No one can take that from me, no matter how many times the story is retold. At Thanksgiving the following year,